Good evening, everybody. It's nice and hot, isn't it? It's good to be here. Good to be here even after the slaughtering match of last Wednesday. Thank you and congratulations. The love is still strong. Well, I think you're going to be the winner of this championship. Well, usually I stand in front of a different crowd: teachers, school managers, students, and especially school managers and teachers. Was trying to explain what FabLab is, introduce FabLab, but also try to convince why FabLab, open design, digital personal fabrication is important for education and is in fact education in essence. And you're a different crowd, so I don't have to introduce FabLab to you. And I just heard I need to compress my my talk a little bit, so I just threw out some sheets, some slides, and I just also decided to kind of experiment with this talk, because I just had some nice ideas from your talk. So thank you for that. Just a small introduction of Waag Society. So Waag is kind of the hosting organization of FabLab Amsterdam. We have different labs, programmatic labs, labs that kind of represent societal domains. So I'm leading, for instance, the Creative Learning Lab, the education domain of Waag Society. But we also have other labs like the Creative Care Lab, which represents the care program. An open design lab, an urban reality lab, which is more or less about locative technologies and performance art in urban environments. A FabLab, which is more or less a horizontal facility. So we use FabLab as a development facility within our programmatic labs. And in blue, this is for us important. We have big budget cuts in the cultural sector in the Netherlands. So we're also we are an e-culture institution for art, science and technology. With all these budget cuts, we're actually now thinking about new business models. For us, actually, the word business model is kind of new to use. One of the new labs, by the way, is the Wet Lab. Interesting lab. It's about bioart and biotechnology. It's about DNA transgenetic manipulation. It's not my lab. This is about speculative design, for instance, developing, this is a project with an artist in residency called Adam Zaretsky, developing a 3-headed orange pheasant. Another program, Artist for Genomics program, we just developed a bulletproof skin. Interesting prototypes coming out of that lab. So FabLab as kind of a horizontal facility, and that also kind of underlines the business model of FabLab on itself, FabLab Amsterdam. It's open 2 days a week, and it's closed 3 days a week. And on the closed days, we actually use the FabLab for project work. So we budget FabLab within our project development efforts. FabLab is also being used as a consultancy service. For instance, Philips Research uses FabLab for free experimentation or different types of brainstorming sessions. Okay, so what I wanted to do in this more or less compressed program was share with you some methodologies we use, some methodologies we developed, which are being used in the FabLab and in a more broader sense in all the other different labs of Waag Society, and share with you some examples, some best practices where we connect FabLab to educational practice. So what you see here is kind of the core methodology we use. We distinguish, we are a center for applied research, we distinguish between 3 forms or 3 types of research. Form research, which is open and exploratory. Context research, where this is the signature of our signature methodology, which we call users as co-designers. Within every development step, we involve our end users, which we actually call not end users, but designers, co-designers. And the last step, transformation. And this is becoming more and more increasingly an important question for e-culture institutions, but also for Fab Labs in the Netherlands. There are a lot of discussions about the sustainability, financial sustainability, for instance, of Fab Labs, individual Fab Labs or Fab Labs which are being hosted within a bigger organization. So within that transformative phase, we seek to kind of capitalize intellectual property rights, capitalize ideas, and think about new kind of licensing models. Everything starts with form research, and form research is open and exploratory. So we host a lot of artist in residency programs within the Fab Lab scape. And this is interesting because I think artist in residencies kind of open up, and you see this quote here, open up new registers of perception, and that is true. Artist in residencies at Waag Society within the Fab Lab are aimed at speculative design. So we have a couple of examples of artist in residency programs here. So this is Arne Hendricks, and Arne is famous for this. I don't know if you know the work, The Incredible Shrinking Man. It's a beautiful work. This is in essence speculative design. So what Arne did was kind of seeing the world around us, and all the objects which are designed and made for us are in a way geared towards the human body and human interaction, and that human body is ever growing. So if you turn that concept around and see the human body shrunken to 50 centimeters, how would the world then look like? And at that point, maybe you have a lot of food to your disposal. When you're 50 centimeters high, we have humongous amounts of food to our disposal, and it's big. That's what The Incredible Shrinking Man is about. It's kind of a turnaround. It's speculative, and it finds solutions for big world problems, such as the world food shortage, for instance. Speculative design is about the turnaround. Another one here you see, this was an interesting one. The idea behind this picture is that you can actually feed 100 persons with a height of 50 centimeters of one chicken. So he, as a type of exhibition, he used an ostrich. So an ostrich is kind of a reference to our height, and for a week 100 people ate of one ostrich, which they butchered, and well, you can imagine something about another project is called Hacking IKEA, using the product catalog of IKEA and kind of reusing all the products of IKEA. I don't know, probably you know this standardized version, the Billy. It's kind of that standard closet. It's made into a coffin, like that one. Or this one, the little lamps, I think they cost €2.50 or something. If you buy like 10 or 12 and you drill holes in it and you attach them, you get this beautiful lamp shape. And the bag. Okay, so we set out these artist in residency programs to come up with new ideas. And it's about speculative design, it's about open design. Come up with new ideas, which they prototype at the Fab Lab. So Fab Lab again here is seen as a facility. So this is a short introduction of Fab Lab. Just housed it at another location, but it gives you an idea of the atmosphere in Amsterdam. This is actually a pretty old movie, but interesting to see. We work with RepRap. Probably a lot of you know RepRap. And you can actually use RepRap to print chocolate in 3D. And here they had sessions, workshops with students, where they designed smart cocktail sticks. So one of the things we do in collaboration with the Creative Learning Lab is kind of build workshops, services around FabLab. What we see is that schools are tend to be hesitant to actually adopt a physical FabLab within their educational environment. So in this kind of transition phase, we go with the principles of FabLab and the basic materials into the schools, and one of which is the Bristol Bots workshop. So I don't know, are there teachers in this space? Educators? Ah, one? Two? Okay. Well, these are really kind of fun workshops, and it's you learn about the basics of a FabLab, which types of machines you can use, and in essence it's about creativity, finding solutions for problems and questions the students themselves ask and raise. So I wanted to show you this one, because if you're talking about artists in residencies and talking about students, talking about people coming into a FabLab, it's in essence about education. And education, I think, is not geared towards primary education, secondary education, vocational training, higher education, or at the university degree. It's lifelong learning. You, me, everybody. So people coming in on a day-to-day basis with practical questions, and it's a learning process they dive into in a FabLab. What I always think is really interesting to see is people coming in on the open FabLab days a bit insecure. Like, can I use all the machines? Yes, you can use all the machines for free. Everything what you do, you document and share. People start working on an individual basis, in most cases. And it's beautiful to see that during the day, people start thinking and seeing what other people are doing in that FabLab, and then start asking, okay, hey, what are you doing? And then at the end of the day, in that kind of cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary phase, then it happens. And I think that is in essence education. And you have beautiful projects. This is a project of MIT, the FabLab itself. Don't know if you know this one. Education can be fun, eh? One of the things we're now trying to do is, I will talk a little bit about this later on. What we're trying to do is set up a Socratic learning hub within a FabLab. And I don't know if you know something about Socrates or Socratic learning. The basic idea is that we see education as something which is kind of supply pushed, like this is what you need to learn. And if you turn that around and see it more or less as something, education as something that starts with a question, and the idea is that everybody is kind of capable asking a philosophical question, and you gear education around that, and you target that to kind of the principles of making, fabrication, personal fabrication, then we could create I think, a beautiful type of education. The big question is, how can we relate and connect it to the curriculum? This is what I always get back from teachers, from school managers. It's beautiful, but how can we implement it within a formal educational setting? How does it relate to educational criteria? Well, I'll come back to that later on. Another format we use is the Unlimited Design Contest. The contest and the format on itself is open source, so if you want to host your own Unlimited Design Contest, please send me a mail and you get all the software and you can host your own contest. So on an annual basis we ask designers, people to actually send in their designs, their prototypes, their demonstrators. So I have some examples of the Unlimited Design Contest of 2 years back, 2010. And here you see the winners. Beautiful wooden lamp, and the idea is that everything you document and share, so all the Adobe Illustrator files of this lamp, the designs are made available, which you can actually load into a laser cutter device. And the idea is that you also document a manual, and in this manual you read about how to assemble this lamp into a final product, but also where you can buy the wood, for instance. I want to show you this sheet because there's another example which connects to education. So what you see here in the top right is an example of an ex-math teacher, Hans Wisbrun. And Hans was a bit frustrated about the fact that the chocolate letter symbol pi did not exist. Wow, that's a beautiful starting point to get into a Fab Lab, I think. And frustration is energy, so that's a good thing as well. He got into the Fab Lab, and within 3 hours he made his first prototype. And what he found when he started on his kind of personal journey in building the first mold of his prototype, he found that the material is really specific, the material of the mold. So the idea is that chocolate sticks to everything, so he needed to find out how to get the right type of material. And I think the most important machine, apparatus in the Fab Lab is the video conferencing set. That really connects to the international community. So you see a lot of Fab Labs not connecting or reaching out to the international community, and I think that's a really important aspect. It is a big community, and the whole idea is if you put on the video conferencing screen, you see a lot of Fab Labs actually adopting the video conferencing set in a way that it's becoming an integral part of the whole dynamics within a Fab Lab. So Hans was confronted with this problem, which type of material to use for his mold. And he connected to Fab Lab or a person in Japan, and he did all types of weird chocolate experiments, and he shared his knowledge. And within 3 hours, he built his first kind of chocolate symbol pie. And he's now in conversations with the biggest chocolate manufacturer producer in the Netherlands, Verkade, to actually get it commercially in the marketplace. And one of the things, because Hans is an ex-math teacher, but also an entrepreneur, and we do see kind of this new wave entrepreneurs coming in, but traditional entrepreneurs, we don't see them coming in, or they are a bit hesitant. I'm going into a Fab Lab and I'm sharing my ideas, everything. And Hans is a new type of entrepreneur. Hans is kind of the type of entrepreneur that says, well, I have an idea, you have an idea, a brilliant idea, but probably is not unique. 400,000 or 500,000 people in the world will probably have the same idea. So what is entrepreneurship about? Entrepreneurship is I think, about the speed which you bring into the process of getting that idea which is in your head into a materialized prototype, which you then can transform into a product. And when you are the first with the product, then you are kind of in the entrepreneurial spirit, in the way that you can claim that it's your product and also claim intellectual property rights. That's what a Fab Lab is about. It's a prototyping space. It's a catalyst in bringing in speed and getting something which is in your head into a materialized prototype. And personal design questions. This is Eric, and Eric is physically handicapped. Eric can move his head a little bit and his hands, but that's about it. And Eric came into the Fab Lab with his personal design question, and he said, well, I am user of this city of Amsterdam, and cities, urban spaces are not designed for handicapped people, and especially handicapped people sitting in chairs. So Eric got into the Fab Lab, and he kind of specified his question, and what he found really difficult is the situation where he wants to go into a metro. So you have a metro and a metro station, and there's always a little gap between the metro and the metro station. And every time Eric wants to go into the metro, he needs to ask somebody, can you push me in the metro system? So what he, oh, you can actually see it here. What he's trying to do, and he actually succeeded. This was the first prototype, which was a first chain link of what is going to be a tank tire, because Eric is making a tank out of his wheelchair, so he can drive into the metro and on the beach. And the interesting thing is, he's not building a new type of wheelchair, but he's actually creating, prototyping an add-on. So this can grow into a community. So he's making an add-on on an existing wheelchair. So if this is going to grow into a community, you can have different kind of wheelchair standards being set out in that community, different types of tank tires. So that is his aim right now, his goal, to set up this community with different types of add-ons for wheelchairs, which is I think is a beautiful project. This kind of also triggered to think about this whole domain of prosthetics, which we call open resource. And here a new program emerged, and this is a collaboration between FabLab India, Indonesia, and Amsterdam, where the goal was to build an open source $50 underleg prosthetic. And this is the first prototype. They succeeded. So here in this sheet, they didn't finish the foot, but that's finished right now. And they wanted to use local materials, such as bamboo, for instance. And the idea is that you can, and this is a generic design. So if you are in a kind of a terrible accident, you can hop into a FabLab and then download the design, use the machines, materials, local materials, and within a day you can make a generic, based on a generic design, a generic form of this underleg prosthetic. But the idea is that you then use the machines within a FabLab scape, FabLab environment to further tailor-made this underleg prosthetic to your needs. And this connects to a vision which we try to set out, and this is kind of a three-layered vision. A vision on fabrication, so fabrication on the level of product development, fabrication in ways in how you can design and shape your environment, public space for instance, and fabrication seen as something which connects to the learning process. So what you see here, and I found this from the internet, I think it really kind of exemplifies the industrial age. This is an English city in England. And I think what fabrication in the 21st century is about. And a couple of months back, Neil Gershenfeld visited Waag, and the Dutch FabLab community was present there. And there was a big discussion about what Neil said, and I think that kind of was the starting point to think about what we now call the open design core, is the way we are in a kind of new phase. We are not in an industrial era anymore. We are in a post-industrial era, and from an industrial era we came to get to know roles as consumers, producers, distributors, centralized production. And this now transformed into something else. And everything is relatively new, but the idea is that, and this is what Gershenfeld kind of was kind of pushing for, is the idea that that whole FabLab network is a new economical model. The biggest upscale, economical upscale, is actually in distributed low-scale production. If you ask one FabLab to manufacture 1,000 chairs, the FabLab would probably not succeed. But if you ask the network, then you can actually compete, and maybe more than compete, with this industrialized, top-down, centralized model. Fabrication in the 21st century is about that idea that roles change, but also ways in how products are being made. So this is a simple car. We lost touch with how products are being made. This is a simple car. And just to get back on that idea of these roles, these industrial roles, if you want to kind of put that on education, I think if you see consumer, producer changing, you also see this in education changing. The role of the teacher is changing, the role of the educator, but also the role of the student. So a consumer is now more and more a co-designer. But a student, a learner, is, I think, also a co-designer of his or her education. And I think that is something which FabLab beautifully facilitates. The second layer is kind of giving shape to your environment. So within the FabLab scape, you have this beautiful 3D printers. But if you want to, and you had an example of you had an example of that big industrial machine. And if you want to kind of open source these big industrial machines, then again it's maybe possible to give shape to all types of installations which are in the public space. And this is what we try to set out as the second phase of FabLab. Giving shape to your environment, product environment. You know this, the FabLab house? The inside of it. And the third layer, the top layer, is more or less about fabrication as ways to understand the world. I found this quote of Confucius, which is kind of 2,500 years old, and I think it's true. This is what it's about. What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. And this is what we see on a day-to-day basis in the FabLab. People coming in with a bit of hesitance, like I cannot work with electronics, for instance, or I find it difficult to see how this laser cutter machine works. But the whole principle of learning by doing is kind of doing it in a FabLab. You get a little bit guidance for 5 to 10 minutes, but then it's up to you. And there's a big enthusiastic group of people always present in the FabLab. Volunteers, people working on their own project, interns, a FabLab manager. And you can ask everybody if you document the whole process. And I think, and that's one of the things from our experience which we are concluding right now, is the idea that it's not in human nature to document. So that's the biggest challenge. Within every step you take in the development process, stop, take a step back, take a photo, make a description. That's the thing we try to steer on a day-to-day basis. We saw the Bristol bots earlier on. So within the Creative Learning Lab, I start with a research agenda for this year, and the upcoming year I have two major research themes. One is citizen science. How can we develop tools for non-scientists to conduct science? And the other one is embodied learning. So this is a picture of a sensor lab which we hosted in collaboration between Creative Learning Lab and FabLab, where we actually set out a space with developers with all types of sensor technologies. We actually focused on the theme, not ICT or media literacy, but sensor literacy. And we asked these students from a secondary school to think about meaningful applications which they can think of using these sensor technologies. So they came up with all types of concepts. One of which I found really interesting was a prototype where they used a kinderwagen, a baby. Thank you, ramp. And what they did is they wanted to measure, or actually compare or benchmark the air quality on a kind of a human adult length versus the height of a baby in a ramp. And they built, I think you can actually see it in the back here. This is not, no, you cannot see it. And what they did, they measured on 2 different heights, and they compared the results, and the results were shocking. The air quality is much worse on ramp height than on adult height. So they were thinking about different concepts utilizing these sensor technologies. Another theme we're now focusing on is embodied learning. So the whole idea is that we want to kind of figure out how technologies such as motion capture technologies, but also sensor wearables, kind of relate to this idea of cognition. And cognition is something, learning is something which is not only taking place in your head. Your body has a relation to that, but also your environment. And within the FabLab, we're working together with a lot of students from technical universities, building all types of applications and testing out how they can fit in these embodied learning installations and technologies within formal education. But also from a more aesthetic point of view, try to build interactive projection environments. Don't know if you know this. Is an artist called Theodore Watson, Funky Forest. It's an interactive projection space where pupils just go in and find out. It's kind of exploratory learning by doing, exploratory learning. Finding out what the functions of this interactive projection space are. So for instance here you can swipe projected water to one of the walls, and by doing that you give the trees water and they start growing. Or you can stand in front of a wall and make yourself big, and then a tree will come grow out of the wall. And this is all, you see here, this is the quality measurement tool. This is all to kind of get the quality of the funky forest in shape. Okay. Probably you're noticing I'm rushing through my presentation. Maybe 1 or 2 examples here, and one of which is where we kind of connect FabLab to technical universities, and this starts with this idea of Socratic learning. So we have a lot of students from technical universities coming in with a question, and there it starts. We don't hand them out the questions, they come in with their own questions. So here we had Mark van Zee wanting to see if it's possible to connect a neural headset to a Wi-Fi a robot. And he succeeded, so this is the experiment where he started to work with another student to first building in the FabLab this Wi-Fi controlled robot, and then used emotive, probably you know emotive, the neural headset technologies. And it actually uses 5 basic functions: forward, backward, left, right, and stop. And the function stop was under development there. So I'm showing you these examples because this is what I do in the Netherlands. I host space within a FabLab for educational target groups, for instance students, school managers, teachers, to experiment, to prototype, to come up with meaningful applications. I'm not thinking and developing the meaningful applications. My end users will do that. When they come up with these types of experiments, we set out and organize big events where we invite school managers, and in this case we invited 30 school managers from primary education institutions, and we just let this show this to them, and we asked the question, what do you think is kind of meaningful in this type of technology? And we had one school manager standing up and saying, well, on a day-to-day basis I have to deal with physically handicapped pupils. Can I port this type of technology and connect these youngsters to a 3D game environment? And that's kind of the starting point for us to take this technology, with a question and transform it into a project. And an example of a project is one which is based on this concept of unsolicited architecture, trying to layer this into what I was explaining about the vision on fabrication. So this is more or less about giving shape to your environment. And we built an open source 3D scanners. I think a lot of them are now currently on the market, but also in the FabLab community you can find a lot of expertise, knowledge and prototypes which you can use to build your own open source 3D scanner. And we asked pupils to actually give their vision on how they think their world should look like without a municipal government or an organization determining how the world should look like. So they came up with all types of clay models which we then scanned in using laser triangulation, which are then ported into these polygon figures, which you then can use into 3D environments. We strip down the texture so they can put on their own textures. And you can port them to Google Earth, for instance, and we now are sharing this between schools in the Netherlands, where pupils make their own physical models using clay. They scan them in and send them to fab labs in the neighborhood, so you can actually print out in 3D the models of pupils in another city. I will skip this one and I will finish here. Fab Academy, you probably know the whole distributed educational model Fab Academy, which is in, I think, essence more or less geared towards higher education universities. I think it is a beautiful model and it works. I don't know if there are people from Fab Labs here who don't use Fab Academy. Everybody, who's from a Fab Lab? And you have Fab Academy running into your, okay. Go for it. It's rewarding and interesting to see what happens there. And we just translated that also in another program called PhD. So this is a PhD for the creative industry. And what you see here, because what you see Fab Academy is more or less geared towards the theoretical principles of digital fabrication, learning also about machines, has a really kind of technical aspect. PhD has a strong artistic or aesthetic focus on digital fabrication. So the two combined could be something which might get a place in this concept of Fab School. Thank you for your presentation, because that whole Fab School thing is something which you see now getting a lot of attention in European Fab Labs. Especially in Belgium, in Ghent, they're really active with Fab School and Fab Lab kind of curriculum-based activities. We're now proposing to kind of bundle all these Fab School, Fab education principles and translate them in this Fab School concept. And I think I should kind of stop here, but I want to leave you with this slide, because there is a big added value in that. Well, you just showed us. But what we noticed from our experience in setting Fab Labs inside schools, there is a big challenge. And especially if you want to host a Fab Lab, a physical Fab Lab within a school. We did this a couple of times. The first encounter was with FabLab Nova College. School in Amsterdam, and what we found out here, that the school found it very difficult to open up in terms of opening up the doors, so people from the neighborhood can come in, experts from outside, people with a question coming into a Fab Lab, they found that difficult. And I think the biggest challenge is also ownership. There should be one person running that Fab Lab, and you should not kind of delegate that on a teacher's team. This is why Fab Lab was not that much of a success within Nova College, but we're trying now to figure out ways in how we can not only implement the principles of Fab Lab within education, but also actually put physical Fab Labs in schools, not only in the Netherlands, but throughout Europe. I will leave you with this. Thank you.